Let's get this show on the road. Hello and welcome to the All Alliance Awards ceremony hosted by Tampa RBA. Let's just get this started. We are starting off with our All Foundation team, just like last week. They had no kicker, so we're starting off with our linebacker from the Milan Road Runners, Wayne Hooker, playing 16 games, getting 127 tackles and 3 interceptions. We have our second defensive lineman from the Ultimate Toasters, getting 231 tackles and 5 sacks. We have our defensive lineman 1, playing 15 games, getting 171 tackles and 8 sacks. We have our second wide receiver from the Louisville Barbarians, playing 16 games, getting 2,491 yards and 32 touchdowns. We have our wide receiver 1 from the Milwaukee Vaporwaves, getting 3,254 yards and 36 touchdowns. We have our tight end 2 from the Scotty Booners, playing 18 games, getting 914 yards and 11 touchdowns. We have our tight end 1 from the Aloof Balloons, getting 84 receptions, 1,008 yards, and 18 touchdowns. We have our running back from the New Orleans Voodoo, getting over 2,400 yards in total and 36 touchdowns. We have our quarterback from the Milwaukee Vaporwaves, getting a 92% completion rate, getting 6,424 yards and 92 touchdowns. Our best team all foundation, having 3 players, is the Scotty Booners. Next is our all ultimate team. First is our kicker from the Newark Cherry Blossoms, Will Lazard, getting 19 field goals attempts and 18 of them made. We have our linebacker from Tampa, Malcolm Kessler, playing 19 games, getting 162 tackles, an interception, and a sack. We have our defensive back from the PA Liberty, playing 14 games, getting 170 tackles and 2 interceptions. We have our defensive lineman from the Louisville Barbarians, playing 18 games, getting 235 tackles and 2 sacks. We have our offensive lineman from Tampa, playing 18 games and getting 208 tackles. That is Kamoko Kirvan. We have our wide receiver from Tampa, Jason Bolton, playing 15 games, getting 3,526 yards and 48 touchdowns. We have our tight end from the Louisville Barbarians, playing 17 games, getting 99 receptions, 1,405 yards, and 30 touchdowns. We have our running back from the Springfield Squirrels, Jerry Dotson, getting over 5,600 yards in total and over 70 total touchdowns. We have our quarterback from PA Liberty, completing 87% of his attempts for a total of 7,266 yards and a total of 93 touchdowns. Our best all ultimate is with 3 players is Tampa. Next is our all champions team. For their kicker is Leo Luck from Force, playing 19 games, making all of his 8 field goals for a total of 333 yards. Next is our linebacker from the Angel Grove Bolts, playing 19 games, getting 61 tackles and 3 interceptions and 3 sacks. Next is our defensive back from the Fighting Beavers, getting 205 tackles. Next is our defensive lineman from the Fighting Beavers, Vic Driscoll, getting 293 tackles and a sack. Next is our wide receiver 2 from Dynamite, Raphael Hack, getting 198 receptions, 4,465 yards, and 60 touchdowns. Our wide receiver 1 from the Fighting Beavers, Saquon Schnell, getting 330 receptions for a total of 5,712 yards and 89 touchdowns. Next is our tight end from the Angel Grove Bolts, getting 1,050 yards and 26 touchdowns. Next is the running back for the New York Mighty Pickles, getting a total of 33 touchdowns and over 1,800 yards. Next is our quarterback from the New York Mighty Pickles, completing 91% of his attempts for a total of 7,110 yards and 91 touchdowns. Our best all champions with 3 players is the Beavers. For our all premier team, our kicker from the Red Comets, Casper Wyan. Our linebacker from the Los Alamos Isotopes, getting 130 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 4 sacks. Next is our defensive back from the Gladiators, Trey Witten, getting 229 tackles and 4 interceptions. Next is our defensive lineman from the middle, Georgia Bobcats, getting 215 tackles and 7 sacks. Next is our offensive lineman from the Seattle Sockeyes, getting triple ones in tackles. Next is our wide receiver from the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks, getting 6,545 yards and 101 touchdowns. Next is our tight end from the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks, getting 1,491 yards and 16 touchdowns. Next is our running back from the Hail Marys, with 3,304 yards and 60 touchdowns. Then it's our quarterback from the Chicago Rams, the one, the only, Deshaun Dahl, making 93% of his passes for a total of 8,544 yards and 134 touchdowns. Our best All-Premier, getting 2 players, is the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks. Before we get to our All-Alliance team, we will get some awards. For the crowd favorite, with 59.2% of the votes, is the LA Wolfpack, soon to be something else that I forgot. The best presentation of games, with 85.65% of votes, is the Red Jackets. The most Alliance spirit, with 100% of the votes, is the Texas Stars. The best trash talk, with 25% of the votes, is the Angel Grove Bolts. Our quickest submitter is the Cincinnati Goose, getting all of his submissions in on May the 9th at 8:25 Eastern Time. The best conference, with 9,648 regular season points, is the West. Mr. Miss Unrelevant, with negative 244 points, is the Dreadnoughts. Our Rookie of the Year, with 436 regular season points, is the Milan Roadrunners. Our regular season champions in the Premier is the Villains, with 818 points, and the champions is the Force, with 545 points. In Ultimate, it's Tampa with 644 points, and in the Foundation, it is Roadrunners with 436 points. Now we have our All-Alliance team, and our second team, All-Alliance. Our kicker from Force from the Champions League is Leo Luck. Our second string linebacker from the Tyrants from the Premier West is Spug Hetty, with 212 tackles and an interception. Our first string linebacker from the Angel Grove Bolts in the Champions League is DeAndre Beavers, getting 61 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 3 sacks. Our second string defensive back from the Los Alamos Isotopes from the Premier West is Abdul Jarwin, getting 147 tackles and 5 interceptions. Our first string defensive back from the Texas Stars from the Premier East is Tenny Nelson, getting 197 tackles and 3 interceptions. Our second string defensive lineman from the Gladiators in the Premier West is Eddie Ingram, getting 127 tackles and 6 sacks. Our first string defensive lineman from the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks from the Premier West is Jamarcus with 234 tackles and 6 sacks. Our second string offensive lineman from the Seattle Sockeyes from the Premier West is Herb Gage, getting triple ones in tackles. Our first string offensive lineman from the Springfield Squirrels from the Ultimate League is Kermit Green, Kermit the Frog, with 129 tackles. Our second string wide receiver from the Dynamite from the Champions League is Raphael Hack, getting 198 receptions, 4,400 yards, and 60 touchdowns. Our first string wide receiver from the Chicago Rams in the Premier West is Cassius Ahai, getting 4,579 yards and 75 touchdowns. Our second string tight end from the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks from the Premier West is Jake Awuzie, getting almost 1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns. Our first string tight end is from the Angel Grove Bolts from the Champions League, getting 1,050 yards and 26 touchdowns is Keki Slade. Our second string running back from the Squirrels in the Foundation League is Elmer Moran, getting 35 touchdowns. Our first string running back from the New Orleans Voodoo from the Foundation League, getting 36 touchdowns and over 2,500 yards. Our second string quarterback from the Texas Stars in the Premier East is Elmer Moran. That's actually a running back, my bad. Our first string quarterback from the Gladiators from the Premier West is Bobby Lamb. Our first team All-Alliance. The kicker from the Newark Cherry Blossoms in the Ultimate League, getting 95% of his field goals made for a total of that wacky number. Our second string linebacker from the Chicago Rams in the Premier West is Ashawn Jewell, getting 182 tackles, 3 interceptions, and 4 sacks. Our first string linebackers from the Los Alamos Isotopes from the Premier West is Lano Blunt, getting 130 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 4 sacks. Our second string defensive back from the PA Liberty from the Ultimate League is Jamal Wesco, getting 117 tackles and 2 interceptions. Our first string defensive back from the Gladiators from the Premier West is Trey Witten, getting 229 tackles and 4 interceptions. Our second string defensive lineman from the Middle Georgia Bobcats from the Premier East is Aubrey Kaya, getting 215 tackles and 7 sacks. Our first string defensive lineman from the Scotty Booners in the Foundation League is Tyree Scaffold with 171 tackles and 8 sacks. Our second string offensive lineman from the Springfield Squirrels from the Ultimate League is LaShawn Freeman, getting 18 games and 186 tackles. Our first string offensive lineman from Tampa in the Ultimate League is Kamoko Curvin with 208 tackles. Next is our wide receiver second string from the Fighting Beavers in the Champions League is Shaquan Schnell, getting 330 receptions, 5,700 yards, and 89 touchdowns. Our first string wide receiver from the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks is in the Premier West, getting 6,545 yards and 101 touchdowns is Jawan Reeder. Our second string tight end from Tampa from the Ultimate League is Nahi Balor, getting 93 receptions, 1,396 yards, and 25 touchdowns. Our first string tight end from the Louisville Barbarians in the Ultimate League is Darren Webster. Our second string running back from the Hail Marys is from the Premier West, Sam Volson, getting 3,300 yards and 60 touchdowns. Our first string running back from the Springfield Squirrels, Jerry Dotson, getting over 500 yards in total and over 70 touchdowns. Our first string quarterback from the Middle Georgia Bobcats from the Premier East is Paris Jackson, completing 92% of his attempts, getting 4,879 yards and 126 touchdowns. And you already know who the first string quarterback is. You have it correct. It's Deshaun Dahl from the Chicago Rams in the Premier West, completing 93% of his attempts, getting 8,544 yards and 134 touchdowns. Our best All-Alliance teams, with 3 players each, is the Chicago Rams, Springfield Squirrels, the Gladiators, and the Chuckanut Bay Geoducks. That is all for our All-Alliance teams. Thank you for watching.